Hello, hello, and welcome to the Inner Work for Greater Good show. My name is Emily Eldridge. As always, welcome. I am so excited to have you here. And honestly, before this show, I really thought to myself, you know what? I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to get to do this TV show and to share all this information with you. If you've been following me, you'll see that I've shared a lot of information, and it's based on work that I developed myself. And so it's exclusive stuff. It's not stuff you're going to find anywhere else. And I just want to really express my gratitude and just soak up this moment of gratitude for having the opportunity to get to share this with you, because this has been a dream of mine to share all of this with you. So anyway, Inner Work for Greater Good. It's all about change makers and teaching change makers inner work that accelerates your power to change the world. I say you because if you are driven to make a positive difference in the world in whatever way, I mean, maybe you own a bakery, maybe, through your parenting, or maybe, you're an innovator, you're a developer, you're an investor. There are all kinds of ways that we can make a positive difference in the world. And that's what it's all about. And so you're someone I call a change maker if you are driven to make that difference. So welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. If you've been following me, or even if you haven't been following, you'll see that I have been sharing a lot of information about the ChangeLight system, which is what I created. And that I also offer the ChangeLight community, which is a wonderful, safe, and supportive community where change makers do their inner work for greater good. And inside that community is the ChangeLight system course. So it's all about learning how to do these techniques to help you affect that transformation within yourself. One of my guiding principles, just so you know, it comes from the book Conversations with God. And it said, or it was the first book, book one, I guess. And he said, a true master is not the one with the most students, but the one who creates the most masters. And so that is one of my guiding principles here. I want you to be able to master yourself and to master what I share with you, and to really learn and grow from it so that you can truly accelerate your power to change the world in all your wonderful ways and to light up, because when you light up the world. So anyway, with that said, I will continue. We are talking about, I always like to introduce the ChangeLight system. These are the basic components of the ChangeLight system, just to refresh your memory if you've been following, or to introduce you in case you're new. We have your exPowers, your emPowers, your guiding star, and your truth. So when we talk about what's going on inside of you, you have all of these inside of you, okay? So exPowers, as you can kind of tell from the picture, is basically those fragments, those parts of you, those voices, those, internal belief systems, those limiting energies, those blocks, triggers, wounds, blind spots, all those things that exist inside of you that prevent you from fully stepping into your power and feeling fully whole and at peace with yourself. See how that's all fragmented, right? It's because someone with a lot of exPowers doesn't really feel whole. So then we have emPowers, though, and the emPowers are what I spent the last 3 or 4 episodes talking about. And your emPowers, basically your exPowers, are just distorted parts of your emPowers whose job it is to empower you to live your truth. That's the whole point of your emPowers. That's what they were designed for. And a lot of my clients who I work with, when we work with their emPowers, or they work with their own emPowers, they call it like my inner team, my wisdom team, my committee, and refer to their emPowers because their emPowers help support them and guide them to live their truth in the highest way possible. Your guiding star is that vision that you carry inside of who you are here to be. It is it's the vision you carry of who you're here to be, doing what you came here to do, fully living your truth. And as I always say, your truth is the treasure we are after here, because when you are living in full alignment with your truth, when you are letting that light shine through you and you are actualizing it, you are acting on it, you are bringing it into reality, that is when you are your most at peace and you're most empowered. So that's what the whole ChangeLight system is about, this system that I developed. And it's all about healing your exPowers, bringing forward more of your emPowers, drawing out, seeing your guiding star, and fully knowing, living, and actualizing the truth that you uniquely are here to live. So with that in mind, we will be, all my little animations. If you've been watching, you know that I'm always like, oh yeah, I forgot about this animation that I put there. My cute little animation, your exPowers and your emPowers. And that's what we're talking about today. So I did 3 or 4 episodes about your exPowers. Go check those out. After that, I did 3 or 4 episodes about your emPowers, in which it teaches you all about these 3 types of emPowers that you have within you that you can tap into. Today, we're actually going to talk about how those two connect, how your exPowers connect with your emPowers. What is that relationship, and which of the 3 exPowers relate to which of the 3 emPowers, and why is it that emPowers become exPowers in the first place, and then how can you transform your exPowers back into your wonderful emPowers so that they can support you and love you and guide you and be with you throughout all of your days, the rest of your days. So I'm going to cover all of that. So as you know, if you've seen the emPower videos, I talk about the 3 types of emPowers. I'll go through them really, really quickly. We've got your sovereign, which is the part of you that knows your truth, that knows who you are independent of anyone else, that guides you to be very courageous, even in the face of great opposition, because then it guides you to trust and know your truth, even when everything else seems like it's not quite in alignment. Your sovereign is all about that. Your sovereign is the part of you that's like the part of you through which you can have like a spiritual connection. Your sovereign is the part of you that is very philosophical, that always asks questions like, why are we doing this? And so it's all about trying to keep you on the path of your truth and be, if you will, sort of the voice for your truth. Your impresario and your free spirit. Now, they're located there on purpose because your sovereign is almost like your higher mind, your higher wisdom, compassion, all of that. Your higher heart, compassion. Your impresario and your free spirit are, in very, very simple terms, kind of like your left brain and your right brain. Okay. I don't necessarily like to just, simplify them that way because they're so rich and they're so wonderful and they're so beautiful and they love you so much and they're here to support you and love you in every way possible. But the point is your impresario is really that part of you that's very practical, logical, all about reason and what is it that we need to do? How do we fix this? How do we approach this? Strategizing. And I call it your impresario, as I said in a previous episode, because it is that part of you that it's like it's like the producer of the show of your life. It kind of goes, okay, what do we need to make this happen here? So it does a lot of problem solving. It does a lot of, dealing with details. It's that part of you. Money, finances, business. Your impresario loves business, though, as I also talk about, your impresario is not the only emPower to use in business. The other 2 are absolutely just as vital, just so you know. So that's basically your impresario. Your free spirit is basically the opposite. It's the part of you that just loves to be free and have fun. It doesn't care about rules. It doesn't care about schedules. It doesn't care about strategy. It doesn't really care about figuring anything out. Your free spirit is like that inner child inside of you who's just so lit up with joy and humor and fun and pleasure. Your free spirit loves pleasure. Your impresario is more about what's practical. Your free spirit is really what's about pleasureful and what makes you feel alive and have fun and feel free and what makes you laugh and giggle, playing games, things like that. So that's how, and the impresario and free spirit are obviously, sometimes when we have trouble with, I don't know which way to go. Sometimes it's because your impresario is saying, has one perspective, I should say, and your free spirit has a different perspective. And so the wonderful thing about these 3 emPowers, though, is that they really can work in concert together. And that's the ideal. You want them to be balanced. You want to honor all 3 of them, even if you feel like you've got more of one or the other, like your natural design, even if you feel like you've got one, that's sort of more than the other, that's totally fine. Nevertheless, must honor all 3 of your emPowers in order to truly feel whole and balanced and in alignment with your truth. And as I often say, for example, here's where it can get problematic. And we're going to sort of talk a little bit about this going forward, because I'm going to be talking about how your emPowers transform into exPowers, is because if you get so wildly out of balance, or if you're impacted by a lot of stress or pain or fear or trauma or unsafety, that's when these parts of you can get wildly out of balance. And sometimes that can simply manifest as, like, for example, your sovereign, when you get a like too much sovereign, sometimes you can be so completely focused on what your purpose is, but you're not really taking action to effectuate it. So in other words, you might be someone who's like, you're really in the clouds, you're really like sort of visionary and dreamy, or like connecting with spiritual, the spiritual realm, but not grounded in reality, or not grounded in practical needs in order for your life to continue. And so that's where, for example, if you have too much sovereign can also mean that, you can become very self-righteous, and think that you're right about everything, because one of the sovereign's parts, it's the part it's also very moral and very conscious of, what it is that's the right thing to do. And so by the same token, too much impresario in business, for example, will lead you to burnout if you don't have enough free spirit and sovereign going, especially if you don't have enough free spirit, that pleasure, that joy and enjoyment of your work. And then by the same token, if you've got too much free spirit going on, then you are probably like all about just trying to feel good all the time, but then maybe not taking care of yourself, maybe not taking care of your bills. And it can be where it's like, being so focused on pleasure that you're not enough focused on practicality or purpose. Why am I here? Like, it's nice to feel good and that's wonderful. But if you don't have the other parts of you, like, for example, if you're just complete free spirit, but like, I mean, let's be real here, like, but not paying your bills, or not like taking care of your health, or not doing other things, well, then you're going to end up out of balance, and you can end up very sick, and you can end up in a pretty bad living situation as well. Just following what feels good purely, as opposed to what really does serve your purpose, let's say, or what really is in alignment with your truth, even if it's hard to do that. Because that's one of the things I want to say, is that when we fully trust our truth, it can be really hard and it can be really uncomfortable, but it's the most rewarding and awesome thing in the world. So that's a long way of saying that we've got these three emPowers. That being said, they can get out of balance and we can end up with too much. This leads to what I'm going to talk about in this next, is that how your emPowers transform into exPowers. And originally I was going to share all three with you, but you know what I realized? I just want to share one at a time, meaning I just want to share what the sovereign transforms into. We're going to talk about that. And in the next two episodes, then we'll do the impresario, and then we'll do the free spirit and talk about why this happens. So here, the sovereign, as I'm showing you, it transforms into, like, when your sovereign is impacted by pain or fear or any sense of unsafety, when it feels that you are unsafe in some way or another, it tends to become a defender, or parts of it, I should say, become defenders. Okay. Next up, what do you think? And if you've been following along with these other shows, I'd be curious to know if you actually can figure out what becomes what. But I'll just go ahead and tell you, impresario. All right. Impresario, when impacted by and distorted by pain and fear, can become controllers, can fragment it into controller energies. And then finally, free spirit can transform into woundeds. Okay, so those are the three basics. Remember, we talked about the three exPower types and the three emPower types. This is how they relate to each other. So you see it here. The impresario becomes controller energy. The sovereign becomes defender energy. The free spirit energy becomes wounded energy. I will say this, I don't want to overcomplicate, which is why I'm keeping it really simple. Occasionally, you might have a wounded that's really acting more like a free spirit that becomes a controller. Occasionally you can have a sovereign that acts more like a controller, but it's not that common. Usually they pretty much are one-to-one. Again, the whole point, from my intention is to teach you in very simple ways so you can start to grapple with these energies inside of you and see how they're connected with one another so that you can have a much wiser and healthier understanding of yourself and more compassionate too. So here's what we're focusing on today: the sovereign and defender connection. Okay, how is it that they connect? So let's look at this. Sovereigns. Let's remember, sovereigns are all about, they're the part of you that's highly independent, that knows who you are independently of anyone else. They're very much about your purpose. What's your truth? What's your mission? They are the source of your courage, the courage to do what you know you need to do, even in the face of great opposition. The spiritual connection, they're very intuitive part of you, the visionary part of you, the one that sees things, even if you're like, I don't know why I'm seeing this, but I'm seeing this. Philosophical, remember I mentioned why, and really thinking about the deeper things of life beyond just whatever is the concrete reality right now. Virtuous, very much about, wanting you to do the right thing and wanting you to be a good person. Compassionate, that sort of higher sense of love is that compassion and being able to have compassion towards your fellow human beings, not just those you know about, but maybe even beyond that. And then wise, it really is a source of your wisdom. All of the emPowers have their own wisdom, but your sovereign is sort of the one that you might think of as like the sage inside of you. So how is it then? You might go, but this is such a beautiful energy and this is so wonderful and fabulous. Why does it become defender energy? Okay, why? So again, a reminder, what is defender energy? Angry, defensive, rageful, vengeful, violent, stoic, impervious, impenetrable, righteous. Remember I mentioned that. Arrogant, superior, thinking you're better than everyone else, and never wrong. So how is it that this wonderful, look at these images for the sovereign, they're just so beautiful and they're so peaceful and they're so wise and they're so centered. And then these defenders, they're angry, they're defensive, they're activated, they are blocking. What is that about? Well, in order to sort of understand that, let's just again revisit, what are defenders trying to do? Because this is going to tell us why a sovereign would become a defender. What kind of conditions would cause a sovereign to become a defender? Well, what are defenders trying to do? We talked about this in the defender episode. They're trying to protect you against violation or pain. They're trying to stand up for you and set your boundaries. And they're trying to block feelings of weakness or vulnerability. Okay? So against violation or pain, stand up, set your boundaries, block feelings of weakness and vulnerability. So I realize that you've been looking at the screen, the slides for a while and not seeing my face. I need to reconnect with you. But now that you've seen those slides, here's the thing. So if defenders are trying to protect you against violation or pain, or they're trying to stand up for you and set your boundaries, or if your inner defenders are trying to block feelings of weakness or vulnerability. So before I get into that, let me just point out, be aware of your sovereign energy inside of you, but also let's be aware of this defender energy within you. You don't necessarily have to have identified a specific part of you, just for what we're doing here, that is a defender, but just feeling that part of you, that defensive part of you, the one that gets really angry and wants to react against people and block whatever's coming your way, or even block feelings that are uncomfortable. So that's the thing about, think about the conditions that would cause a defender to feel the need to do that, or rather a sovereign energy to feel the need to become more like what we're talking about here, a defender type energy. I don't know, it could be because maybe you've experienced some kind of violation. I mean, I'm not trying to make light of this. It's like, it's right there. If you've experienced any kind of violation, and we all have, it can be physical violation, it can be an emotional violation, it can be a spiritual violation, it can be a violation of trust. If you've experienced some kind of violation of your physical boundaries, your emotional boundaries, then of course a part of you is going to want to try to protect you. And the sovereign's way of trying to protect you is by saying, no, not letting this happen again. So that's basically what happens, is your sovereign energy, which does all these wonderful things for you and is this wonderful presence inside of you. If it senses that you're being hurt or violated or anything, and especially if it happens like really traumatically or chronically, then that is what it will choose. Not every time. Let's just put it this way. There, a part of you will choose to do that. A part of you will choose to do that because it's trying to protect you from that pain again. And so, of course, that's what gets triggered, right? Thenceforth is that energy inside of you, because it's saying, we've already been here, or I don't want this to happen again. And I'm, this is not happening. And of course, sometimes, so that becomes our triggers. It also becomes our blocks. It blocks other people from connecting with us, etc. So that's one thing. Also, a way that a sovereign can become a defender, or rather a sovereign can become defender type energy, or parts of it, a sovereign, I should say, can become a defender type energy, is if you have not been standing up for yourself enough and setting your boundaries. Okay. So this is a bit different. In the other one, it's like it's trying to block the pain or the violation. But in this case, it's actually that your sovereign energy may sense that, you know what, you're not setting your boundaries here. Like, this is not okay. And you're not standing up for yourself. And so a lot of times then that sovereign, because it so knows like what your boundaries are and who you are, who you're here to be, if it senses there's a violation, it's going to be like, it's going to be like, you need to stand up for yourself and set your boundaries, or it's going to do it for you. A lot of times it'll just do it for you. I've talked to a lot of inner defenders where that's what they said. The other part of that too, though, is that when we're children, we don't have as strong a sense of boundaries. And also we're so dependent on the people around us for survival that is why we often don't stand up for ourselves, because we have to survive in this environment. And standing up for ourselves could mean getting it in the neck, could mean more danger, more violation. And so that's where your sovereign energy inside of you sees this, senses this in your environment. And so it will try to stand up for you and set your boundaries for you. But a lot of times what happens is that when my clients come to me and they say, I have this, I'm so defensive, or I'm so rageful, or I have a really hard time connecting with other people, or I don't even know how to connect with my own feelings. I mean, there are all kinds of defenders, as you can see. But the point is, when I have a client who comes to me and they say that that's what they're struggling with, and if it's a defender, it's because they probably had some kind of experience as a child in which they were violated and a defender formed to protect them. But as an adult, when they have a lot more autonomy, a lot more power, the ability to remove themselves from a dangerous situation or difficult situation, the thing is, though, that defender might be still there doing its job. And so it'll like jump in there or rush in there. And the person is like, I don't want to feel this way. And I don't want to keep behaving this way. And so that's where the defender has basically outlived its purpose. It's not working anymore. It's actually having a counterproductive impact. That's what exPowers end up doing. Their intentions are always good. They're trying to protect you from pain, whatever way they know, or protect themselves from pain. And so that's where these exPowers become problematic, is when they're doing too good of a job, or they sort of outlived their usefulness because you've grown up, because you've changed, because etc. Finally, in terms of blocking feelings of weakness, a defender can be like, I don't like her feeling sad. I don't like her feeling scared. I don't like her, being worried or whatever. And so defenders can sometimes try to, or feeling vulnerable or weak, can try to keep you from feeling that way, or just sort of almost like defend you against those feelings, if you will. Because then if it feels like, because ultimately you're sovereign, let's put it this way, ultimately your sovereign energy wants you to feel strong, and it wants you to feel empowered, and it wants you to trust your truth. And it knows that you need to feel those ways, courageous and all that, in order to trust and live your truth. But the defender energy might show up because if it senses that you're feeling weak or vulnerable, and it's like, no, we can't have that. So we're just going to block those feelings so that maybe, she will keep feeling confident. But then you end up with, a lot of fragmentation there, and feeling emotionally dismissive and not being able to connect with your own feelings on things. So there's a lot in this. So that's the point. is between these two. I'll just show this again, the sovereign and defenders. And so that's essentially why our sovereign energy can transform into that defender energy. Okay. Here's what I want you to take from this, kind of first and foremost, I guess, is I want you to take from this that your defender energy, okay, so noticing those parts of you that are angry and defensive and, or that cause you to be just, better than everyone else, or self-righteous, or, or impenetrable, like you've got walls around you. I mean, people talk about this all the time, right? It's like they have a wall, or clients come to me all the time, like they have a wall and it's impenetrable and they don't know how to get outside of it. And that wall is part of why they have trouble with relationships, or they have trouble in business, or what have you. What I want you to take from this, as I talked about even before, when I talked about the exPowers, these defenders in you are not bad. This defender energy in you is not bad. And there is nothing wrong with you for having it. It's just these are simply parts of you that have been distorted by fear, by pain, by unsafety, and most especially with defenders, by some feeling of danger or violation. So if you've experienced that, then you're going to have defenders. It's just the way it is. But that doesn't mean you are stuck with them. Okay. And I'm going to share a little bit about that in a second. But for now, I want you to see that your defender energy is just your sovereign energy that's been distorted by fear and by pain. That's all it is. Okay. So it's not a bad part of you. It's just these defenders are doing their very best to protect you, whatever ways they know. But then when they can transform, I'm going to talk about that in a second, when they can transform, they transform back to that sovereign energy, which fills you with this incredible wisdom and this incredible clarity and sense of power and ability to really know and live your truth and have the courage to do so. So I want you to just see, as you notice these energies inside of you, notice the defender energy and say, you know what, how could this actually be a sovereign type part of me that's just trying to protect me, and that's just trying to make sure that I honor my own boundaries, that I set my bounds, stand up for myself, that I don't experience, violation again, that I, and actually here's the interesting thing too, even though defenders say that they don't want you to feel your weak feelings, a lot of times they will end up telling me, actually, I really want her to feel her feelings. I want her to be honest about how she's feeling. So very interesting stuff there. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Here is an image of a before and after. Now, this is not a defender. This is actually, I should have found a defender. I'm sorry about that, like a defender sovereign connection there. I'm sorry, I should have pulled one of those up. But for now, in any case, what we've got here is a little girl and the mother. And you can see the little girl is screaming. This is a drawing that my client did. So it's a before and an after here. And this, you see the little girl is crying and screaming and so sad and so unhappy and so upset. And then you've got the mom who's saying, I'm trying to make you grow up. And, and she's basically yelling. This is what was happening in the session, yelling at the little girl. And the little girl is screaming and crying. And she says, I'm scared and I want you to take care of me. But she's got this mean mommy. So this is what we started with in a session of the drawing out process. And these were the exPowers that came up within this woman. And she'd been struggling with a lot of things. She'd been struggling in relationships. She'd been struggling in her business. She'd been struggling with her self-worth. And then because of the drawing out process, which is the technique that I do and that I teach you in the ChangeLight system, through going through the entire drawing out process, this is what we ended up with on the right, where the mother was holding the little girl with love and peace. And the little girl felt safe again with what was that mean mommy inside of her. This was an actual replay inside of my client of, what was actually going on inside of her at the time, but based on what had happened when she was a little girl. And so that's the thing. We have these things that happen to us that, cause us fear, pain, sense of unsafety, and these parts of us form. So these exPowers form. but they can be transformed back. And that is what the ChangeLight system does. So within the ChangeLight system is my exclusive drawing out process, which transforms your exPowers back into emPowers, accelerates your ability to live your truth, achieve your optimum potential, and make the greatest difference. That is what my work is all about. And so I just want to introduce that to you and let you know that that's always available to you. So finally, I just want to invite you, if you are curious about learning the ChangeLight system, if you want to learn how to draw out your exPowers and transform them back into your emPowers so that you feel more amazing and whole and free and at peace and just blissful and wonderful, this is what happens, then I invite you, please join us in the ChangeLight community. It's a safe and supportive community. You can learn the ChangeLight system. It's really, really lovely. Just launched. It's really exciting stuff. So I hope that you'll join us, community.changelight.world. And of course, the next episode, we are going to be talking about, so we did the sovereign and the defenders. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about your impresario and how that relates with your inner controllers. Really, really interesting stuff. So anyway, I'm out of time. I hope that you've had a wonderful time listening to all this. I hope this has been really informative for you, enlightening for you. I hope that you really look at yourself and you really go, okay, so here's what I'm experiencing inside of me. And you know what? Yeah, I really struggle with this. And I really don't like this part of me, or I hate how I get so enraged, or I hate how I feel so blocked. But then as you can start to understand and really have compassion for those parts of you, based on knowing, in this case, as I taught here, that really those inner defender energies are just parts of your sovereign that have seen you get hurt and they just don't want that to happen again. But that ultimately that is wisdom. That is an incredible power. Those defenders inside of you are incredible latent powers that when they're transformed back to their original essence, support you in such and love you in such amazing ways to live your truth. That is what this is all about. We are all about you living your truth and changing the world in whatever ways called to you. So thank you, Changemaker. It's been wonderful talking to you. I so appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.